Atheist Nomads, episode 117. Interview with Dr. Darryl Ray.
Atheist Nomads is proudly brought to you by Archway Hosting. Check out their low-price, full-featured hosting solutions at archwayhosting.com. That's ARCHWAY hosting.com.
Hey, we're also brought to you by listeners just like you. Find out how you can become a patron at patreon.com/atheist nomads. That's patreon.com/atheist nomads.
The podcast you're about to listen to includes cursing and talking about hoo-haws. Please be advised.
We are the Atheist Nomads, bringing you history, science, politics, religion, and interviews with leaders in the atheist community. Not all those who wander are lost. Welcome to another episode of Atheist Nomads. I am Dustin. Joining me as always is Wesley.
Hey there.
And joining us once again is Dr. Darryl Ray.
Good to be on, guys.
Oh man, it's been a while.
Yeah, it really has. It was episode 18.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah.
So it's almost been 100 episodes.
Holy shit.
Wow. Well, okay. We'll try to make up for lost time here.
Yeah. And for a little bit about Dr. Ray, he is the founder of Recovering from Religion, author of 4 books, 2 on organizational team issues, as well as The God Virus and Sex and God. He is the host of the Sexuality podcast, a psychologist for over 30 years, and all around just awesome guy.
And a dude that knows how to put on a party.
Well, I like to party. If life's not worth partying for, then it's probably not worth it. So let's party.
Fucking hey.
Yeah, just to let everybody know. We'll have to let everybody know the details of the party so they can start planning for next year.
Oh, hey. All right. So, yeah, it's been a while, but you know what? I've heard that you got some really fresh stuff that you've been talking about. And I'm sorry, but I've just been wanting to talk about these Duggars for a while. So I heard you got an interesting perspective on them, let's say.
Oh, where did you hear this? Who are you talking to?
This was from...
Can you reveal your sources?
No, sir. Is this something you're allowed to talk about? Or have you take the lid off it yet?
No, go for it.
Well, by all means, no, you should step up, sir.
Oh, you want me to talk about it? I thought you had questions for me.
Well, give us an overview, and then we'll start questioning, because I think everybody's familiar with the Duggars to a certain extent.
Right.
Between Josh and his sisters, or family in general.
Yeah, I gave a talk last Sunday at our local Oasis meeting, and the title of it was What the Duggars Can Teach Us About Human Sexuality, which was a somewhat misleading title. I lie sometimes, and I did that time, because the Duggars really can't teach us shit about sexuality, except as a negative example, which they do very, very well. So that's focused on. With some caveats, and actually with some sympathy. I have some sympathy for the Duggars, as we can talk about if you want to. But I looked at the Duggars as an example of what's wrong with fundamentalism and their psychology. I talk in my talk, and people can go to Oasis Network and just Google my talk, and they'll come right up. But if in my talk, I talk about the Duggars as being having a fundamentalist psychology, and people really don't think about there being any other kind of psychology than the kind that you go to a psychologist to see, or a counselor, or what's published in professional papers. But indeed, fundamentalists do have a psychology. It's not scientific, but it's a psychology. And the psychology is that is run through the spirituality stuff, and run through their theology, and run through their view of creationism. The notion that their psychology, the notion that women are tainted and are broken from the very beginning. We're all broken according to them. But when you start understanding that their worldview is really, really consistent, and it has a psychology to it. It's not just willy-nilly. It's not random. And from an outsider's perspective, we think, well, those bunch of hypocrites out there. But really, there's not even hypocrisy. Once you understand the Duggar point of view, the quiverful, the fundamentalist kind of worldview, then it makes perfect sense. For example, a lot of people say, "Well, how about the Duggar? He's such a hypocrite." Well, what we're seeing in action right now is what we saw with, say, Ted Haggard, what we saw over the years with Jimmy and Tammy Baker. All these scandals that took place is they have, within their psychology, they have something called a forgiveness ticket. And once you've fucked up bad enough, you get, you have to resign, you have to leave, you have to stop doing whatever you're doing for a while. You have to go to Jesus rehab in some form. And then when you get through Jesus rehab, you get your forgiveness ticket punched, and that lets you back into the club. And that's what's happening. We see, for example, in Franklin Graham, the guy was, a biker and a sinner and all sorts of stuff. But he finally repented, went through forgiveness, whatever he ended up doing, and Billy Graham's son. And now he's one of the top assholes in the world with respect to from our worldview. From their worldview, Jesus has forgiven him. And you can get unlimited numbers, forgive 70 times 7 is what Jesus himself said. So they will forgive their own over and over again. And there's a couple caveats here. One is you get, the younger you are, the easier it is to get forgiveness without a lot of shenanigans. The more powerful you are, the more you have to get your ticket punched, the more things you have to do. Josh Duggar, I will guarantee you 2 years from now, he'll be back on the evangelical circuit and he'll be doing his thing. Yeah, Bristol Palin is out there, has been campaigning against premarital sex and absent and advocating abstinence only, but she got her forgiveness ticket punched after the first out of wedlock baby and got back in the good graces of everybody. She's young though. She did it again, and she got her forgiveness ticket punched again. In many cases, all you have to say if you're young is, "Oh, I've asked for Jesus to forgive me, and now I'm forgiven." Now, when you get as powerful as somebody like Josh Duggar or Ted Haggard, you have to go through a lot more hoops to get back into the club. But we have to think of this as in-group, out-group behavior in terms of our kind of psychology, scientific psychology, is you are still part of the in-group. You're just kind of put on the side. You're put out temporarily, and if you'll just go get your forgiveness ticket punched, you can get back in. So Josh goes to sex addiction counseling, for example. That's what his dad did for him. Sent him off to that retired Arkansas state trooper, and for 6 months he builds houses with the guy under the guise of getting sex addiction treatment. Well, if you heard anything about from my talks, there's no such thing as sex addiction, and Josh Duggar certainly is not a sex addict, but he got treatment from this trooper with no training.
If you can call that treatment.
Well, it is treatment. Now see, that's where you're going wrong. You need to understand about Jesus here. You don't know Jesus. Jesus forgave Josh Duggar, and that it took him 6 months to forgive Josh Duggar, but once he was forgiven, then he got his ticket punched, and he's back in. And he's back in from molesting his 5 girls, 4 of his sisters and somebody outside the family. So and of course, nobody says anything about the damage done to the girls because, again, within their psychology, women and girls are second-class citizens. And when a girl sins, especially sexually, a sexual sin among females is far greater than a sexual sin among males because males are the dominant males. So Josh Duggar will get his ticket punched. He'll get back in. If he had just done the, back in May when this all broke, he'd be preaching again by now. He might have had a position back with the Family Institute. Who knows? The trouble is he was also on Ashley Madison and some other dating sites, so he's going to have to go. So what he has to do now is they try to push him into this Christian sex addiction treatment, and that treatment is pretty long. It can go up to a year. It looks to me like I've read. I went in and looked at their site, and there's not a single qualified counselor in there.
I'm curious. From what I've heard, last heard is that he hasn't even reported to that place.
That's true. That's true. But before that, I went and researched it and I was looking, because this is where they're sending Christians right and left to go pay thousands and thousands of dollars to get treatment. Now, if you look at their treatment, it's mostly prayer and Bible reading. And that's what passes for treatment. And the counselors' qualifications are they were a heroin addict as recently as 3 years ago, or 2 years ago, they were a sex addict, but Jesus has saved them. And what qualifies them for counseling, to be a counselor, is that they have been filled with the Holy Spirit. Again, it's a part of their psychology. Someone that's filled with the Holy Spirit has the power within their own Bible to heal other people and to read other people's spirituality and help them recover from the evil, the demons that possess them or have influenced them in some way.
Well, one thing I saw growing up in the Adventist church was the quote unquote worse you were, then the faster people will accept you and the higher the praise they will give you.
Right.
Like I knew kids that they, grew up in Adventist homes, were wayward teens and did tons and tons of drugs and, got a couple women pregnant and then turned 18, is like, oh, I'm not doing that anymore, study theology, and have no trouble getting hired as a pastor.
Yeah, right.
Because they were reformed.
Getting right with God is so important.
They'd have a testimony to tell.
And you'll notice it's all males. You don't hear those stories quite as often from females, because females aren't even allowed to preach, so you're not going to see that for sure. But the women that got pregnant, how are they treated in those same churches? The girls that got them pregnant, are they shunned? Oftentimes getting back into the fold is really, really difficult because they had a child out of wedlock.
Now, fortunately, what I saw in the Adventist church is that they'd usually kind of get the cold shoulder while pregnant, and then once the baby was born, everything was all fine and dandy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. But they're not going to get any, well, of course, they can never get positions of leadership. And there's always the question until they get married. Now, when they get married to a man and maybe have other children with that man, they will also then become candidates for martyrdom in the sense that, the males will, in the sense that, this male took on the baby of another man, so he's kind of a martyr. He's stepped up and he's following Jesus better. She never gets credit for raising the kid as much as the guy does because he's sacrificing himself. I mean, that's all a part of their theology and psychology. But in each case, you see it always gravitates toward males getting more credit, males getting preference within that whole system.
Definitely.
In my talk, I talk about a whole system of abuse and sexual misbehavior that just surrounds this whole family of Jim Bob and Michelle Duggar. And I just have the hardest time saying that word, Jim Bob. It just sounds like it came from a Southern reality show, doesn't it? And
you're in Missouri, right?
I'm in Kansas.
You're in Kansas. Okay, so you're
Kansas
two
City.
states.
Kansas City on the Kansas side.
Okay, so you're 2 states away from them.
Arkansas is,
Yeah.
True, yeah. So within that framework,
what can they really teach us besides, missionary position?
That's the only thing you're supposed to be using. You didn't know that?
Damn it, I'm fucking it up already.
You need to go back to church to learn something. Well, around this whole network is Bill Gothard, who's like the god of homeschooling, and he got caught abusing the young interns in his office. You get this huge organization that's supplying all these Christian homeschoolers around the country. And people noticed he always seemed to have the prettiest interns. And turns out, he's abusing them, molesting them, and all sorts of stuff. Well, he had to resign over all that. But this is one of the top people in the nation. And then you got, of course, Josh Duggar we've talked about. And then you got Doug Phillips of Vision Forum. And Vision Forum